My name is Ryan. I'm 48 years old. I work in logistics, routing, coordination, the invisible skeleton behind shipments that arrive on time. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. Precise. Predictable. Which is more than I can say about what I walked into 9 years ago when I moved in with Sandra and her daughter, Haley. No marriage certificate. No legal guardianship. Just a quiet agreement that I'd be around. That I'd help. I remember the first night. I showed up with a box of tools and a used vacuum because the one they had kept spitting out dust. Haley didn't even look at me. She was 12, lanky and moody, hiding behind a hoodie that swallowed her whole. Her father, Nick, had recently dropped off the map again. Some new girlfriend in Santa Barbara? A fitness startup or a tequila brand? I don't remember. Sandra just shook her head when I asked. It's better if we don't rely on him. So they relied on me, and I stepped up. I started paying half the rent within a month. Full rent within 6. Groceries, utilities, her car payment when hers gave out. Sandra didn't ask, I just did it. That was the kind of man I believed I was supposed to be. Silent, reliable, concrete beneath other people's lives. At first, Haley was just cold. Then she got clever. She'd invite friends over and tell them to ignore the roommate. Or worse, introduce me as my mom's friend Ryan. Never a stepdad. Never a partner. Just presence. I laughed it off the first dozen times. Said things like, teens, right? Or she'll warm up. Sandra never corrected her. Said it wasn't worth the fight. You're the adult, she reminded me. Don't expect too much from teenagers. So I didn't. I adjusted, adapted, learned to speak Haley's language. I read up on what she was into: vintage sneakers, indie bands, makeup tutorials. I helped her with homework when she'd let me, and stayed silent when she wouldn't. When she asked for her own room setup, I built her desk by hand. Measured it down to the inch. Made it beautiful. She never said thank you. Not once. Still, I told myself that maybe one day in college or after, she'd look back and realize that she'd reach out. Say something small. Hey, Ryan, I remember what you did for me. That she'd come around. Instead, she got sharper. More distant. Like each year added a new layer of frost. Sandra noticed. Of course she did. But she deflected. It's just a phase. Haley's under a lot of pressure. She doesn't mean it. So I carried the weight. Quietly. I covered SAT prep, orthodontics, and her first iPhone. When she lost it in sophomore year, I bought the replacement within 24 hours. Paid off Sandra's lingering credit card bills without ever mentioning it. Took care of everything. Even the dog. Toby had been their pet before I arrived. An aging beagle with a limp. He took to me almost immediately. I walked him before work, fed him at night, took him to the vet when his legs gave out. Haley never noticed. Not once. When he died, I held his paw while they slept. Dug the hole myself behind the shed. I said a few words. For him. For me. There's something dehumanizing about being indispensable but invisible. When Sandra needed new tires, I paid for them. When Haley wanted to go to New York with her art club, I found a flight with points and booked the hotel. I gave quietly, never kept score, at least not until the end. Because something in me always hoped it would balance out. That one day the scales would tip the other way. That love, or at least acknowledgement, would show up. But that night, that Tuesday, killed whatever hope was left. I remember it perfectly. I was coming back from fries with takeout. Pad Thai, Haley's favorite, no cilantro, extra egg. Sandra was in the shower. The house was dim, quiet except for the hum of the dishwasher. I walked past Haley's door. It was cracked open an inch. Just enough. She was on FaceTime with a friend, feet up on the bed, twirling a hairband on her finger. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I just paused. Maybe I wanted to hear her laugh. Instead, I heard this. I'd never thank him. He's not family. She said it lightly. No heat. No edge. Just calm. Like she was reading the ingredients off a cereal box. Then she laughed. And something inside me, something I didn't even know was still alive, just stopped. It wasn't the cruelty. It was the certainty. The ease. She didn't say it out of anger. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She meant it. That's when you know the truth has finally arrived. I stood there with those paper bags crinkling in my arms. Felt the sweat on my palms. My heart wasn't racing, it had slowed. Like my body knew something ceremonial had just happened. Something that could never be taken back. 9 years. 9 years of being the emergency contact, the silent chauffeur, the man who showed up when it mattered. And in 10 words, I was stripped of all of it. I didn't say anything. Didn't knock. Didn't go in. I just turned, walked to the kitchen, and set the food down like a stranger delivering a package. Later that night, I watched them eat. Haley scrolled through her phone, laughed once, then disappeared upstairs with half her noodles untouched. Sandra asked how my day was. I said fine. Nothing in my voice betrayed me, but something had changed. I stopped listening when Sandra spoke. I started seeing the house not as home, but as a collection of receipts. I began to feel every dollar, every minute, every scraped knuckle and sleepless night. I saw the spreadsheets in my head, tuition transfers, grocery runs, new phones, late-night runs to CVS for heating pads and Advil. All of it. A life built brick by brick on my back. And none of it meant anything. Not to them. That was the crack that split the house in half. A quiet sentence, whispered behind a door. And I wonder, even now, how many men like me are standing on the other side of that door, holding their breath, waiting to hear if they matter? If you're reading this and nodding, you already know the answer. That sentence haunted me for days. I'd never thank him. He's not family. She said it like she was stating the color of the sky. Not defiance. Not anger. Just a simple, surgical truth. And I realized something terrifying in that moment. I could disappear, and nothing in this house would change. The routines might shift. The bills might pile up. But the emotional weight, the human cost, I would vanish like smoke. I started noticing things. How Sandra had stopped asking me how my day was. How Haley took my help as a given, like a faucet she could turn whenever she was thirsty. How the meals I cooked were picked at or left half-eaten. The silence around the table wasn't tension, it was entitlement. They weren't waiting for me to speak. They didn't care if I did. One evening, I asked Haley to help bring in groceries. She looked up from her phone, said, "Just a sec," then never came. Sandra saw me carrying in 6 bags alone. She said nothing. Another night, I came home from work early, burned out, eyes throbbing from spreadsheets and last-minute routing failures. I found Sandra on the couch watching a show. Haley's laptop open on the kitchen island. Half a smoothie congealed beside it. No dinner started. No welcome. Sandra looked up briefly and said, "Rough day." I nodded. She went back to her show. I microwaved leftovers. Ate alone. That night, I pulled out the old spreadsheet. I hadn't touched it in years, not since the early days when I used to keep track just to stay organized. I thought I was building a future then, a shared life. So I documented it. Every car payment, every Costco trip, every deposit into Haley's college savings. I had receipts for all of it. I never planned to use them. It just helped me breathe, seeing the numbers add up to something I thought meant stability. But that night, I opened it with a different purpose. I updated the file, line by line. $1,200 orthodontics, $2,900 SAT tutor, $540 art camp deposit, $3,600 Haley's first laptop, plus accessories, $480 monthly groceries, average, x 92 months, $14,000 contributed toward mortgage, not on deed, $2,200 cell phones, replacement screens, monthly plan, $4,300 therapy, copays, missed work hours. The list kept growing. I added a tab for travel, New York, LA, Florida. Another for subscriptions they used, streaming platforms, music apps, cloud storage. I added in the Uber credits I covered, the meal delivery plans, the AirPods Haley broke and then replaced without asking. Her voice echoed in my head like a curse. He's not family. The total, when I finally tallied it, was more than I made in a year. I sat there staring at that number. My heart wasn't angry. It was hollow, like I'd already grieved the thing I thought we had. I printed the spreadsheet 5 neat pages, slipped them into a clear binder, labeled it, Ryan's Expenses, 2015 to 2024. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights off, the binder on the table in front of me. The house was quiet. Sandra upstairs, scrolling through social media, Haley laughing in her room at some video. They didn't know I was downstairs. They never did. I lived in this house like a ghost they depended on. And I made my decision. The next morning was Saturday. Sandra liked to sleep in. Haley had plans. Her friend Hannah was picking her up around 10. I woke early, showered, got dressed like it was any other day. Except this time I didn't make breakfast. I didn't start the laundry. I didn't ask if they needed anything. I walked to the kitchen, placed the binder on the table. Next to it I left the garage key, the spare car key, and the credit card they both had been swiping for months without asking. I wrote no note, no speech, no long explanation. Instead, I picked up my bag, already packed, and walked out the front door as the sun cracked over the edge of the neighborhood roofs. I called a rideshare from the curb. Sandra's car was still in the driveway. Haley's window still dark. I didn't look back. The driver asked if I was heading to the airport. I said yes. Austin. I had already transferred my job. My company owed me a favor. I cashed it in. A lateral move. Same salary, new city. Fresh air. No memories. Halfway to the terminal, I blocked both their numbers. I didn't cry. I didn't second guess. I stared out the window as the suburban sprawl blurred past and felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. At the airport, I sat with a black coffee and watched families swarm the gate. Kids pulling suitcases too big for them, parents barking schedules. I saw men like me, fathers or stepfathers, it didn't matter, carrying other people's weight with a smile. I wondered if they were waiting to hear the same sentence I had. He's not family. The plane boarded. I didn't check my phone once. I landed in Austin, picked up the keys to my temporary apartment, and slept 12 hours straight that night. No texts, no alarms, no one needing anything. When I woke, I walked to a park, sat on a bench overlooking a small lake, watched ducks drift without effort, without purpose. The sky was clean, unburdened, and still in the back of my mind I heard it. That sentence. The one that unlocked everything. Not a scream, not an insult, just truth. I'd never thank him. He's not family. That's when I understood. They had never asked me to stay. I had offered, and they had taken. Every single day for 9 years, they had accepted the life I built without ever admitting I mattered. And maybe that was the point. They didn't want a man. They wanted a bank. They didn't want a father. They wanted a mute chauffeur, a handyman, a shield. So I gave them what they wanted, absence. I would not be their ghost anymore. They didn't call at first. Not when they found the binder. Not when they saw the empty closet or the cleared bathroom counter. Not when the garage door didn't open because I'd taken the remote with me and deactivated the app access. But they found the binder. I know they did. 5 crisp pages, cover labeled in black ink. Ryan's Expenses, 2015 to 2024. No accusations. No demands. Just rows of numbers. Proof. Their lives in black and white. I imagined them reading it in silence. Sandra's brow furrowing as she flipped the pages, each one heavier than the last. Haley pretending not to care, skimming, scoffing, but seeing her first laptop listed, her orthodontics, the trip to New York, her monthly data plan, all of it, every penny. It took 23 hours for the first message to arrive. An unknown number. Sandra. What is this binder? What did you do? No, where are you? No, are you okay? Just panic. That was all I needed to know. They didn't miss me, they missed the support. I didn't reply. 3 hours later. Haley's in shock. Why would you be so extreme? I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Alone in my Austin apartment, feet up on the edge of the coffee table, sunlight cutting across the floor. They thought this was extreme? 9 years of silence was extreme. 9 years of carrying 2 people on my back while being treated like a houseplant. That was extreme. I let the message sit unread. That evening, another text. You're not seriously gone for good? Gone? No. I was just finally visible. My absence did what my presence never could. It made a point. By day 3, Sandra tried a new tactic. Guilt. Haley's not eating much. She's been quiet. Please don't make this worse. Worse? I'd done nothing but walk away. I hadn't cursed. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't demanded repayment. I just stopped. Stopped pretending that love without respect could sustain me. By day 4, the tone changed again. You left us like we were nothing. I stared at that one for a long time. I typed, then erased, then typed again. But I didn't send it. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote the words out longhand. I left because you told me I was nothing. Let them sit with that. On the 6th day, Sandra finally told the truth, maybe without meaning to. How do I explain this to Haley? She wants to know who's going to pay for college now. There it was. Not grief, not remorse, just concern for the budget. Because that was always the unspoken deal. I give, they take, and nobody says thank you. Now the contract had ended. And then, on day 7, Haley messaged me directly. First time in months. I didn't mean it like that. No greeting. No name. That night, I was venting. My friend twisted it. You weren't supposed to hear. Right? Like pain only counts when it's shouted. She continued, Mom showed me your list. Is all of it true? I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't have to. The spreadsheet spoke louder than I ever could. 2 days later, another message. Some of that stuff I didn't even know you paid for. Mom said you handled it, but I thought. She thought what? That the bills paid themselves? That insurance grew on trees? That tutors showed up for free because she was charming? The silence that followed was the most honest thing she'd ever given me. By the 2nd week, Sandra left a voicemail. Her voice was calm now, measured. Ryan, I know you're angry. I know this isn't how you wanted things to go. But Haley's struggling. We're both trying to process this. Please, can we talk? It was the first time she didn't say you need to, or why did you? Just can we? Like I had a choice. I didn't call back. Instead, I went for a walk. Down to the lake trail that wound behind my apartment complex. The water shimmered under the dusk light. Families jogged past. A father helped his son ride a bike, his hands steady on the seat. I watched them disappear around the bend, and something inside me burned. Not jealousy, not loss, just clarity. I had been that man. I had held steady for years, and they let go the second it suited them. The next week, a letter arrived. Not email, not text. A letter, handwritten, from Haley. It was 3 pages long. Careful loops of ink. No emojis. No sarcasm. She didn't apologize. Not directly, but she admitted the binder shook her. She said she hadn't realized how much I had done. That when she saw it laid out, it made her feel like I'd been blind. She ended it with this, I don't know what we were to you, but I think you were something to me. I just didn't say it. And maybe if she had sent that before when it still mattered, things would be different. But now, it was too late. Because here's the truth. The damage wasn't done when she said I wasn't family. It was done every time she didn't say I was. And Sandra? She vanished after that. No more texts. No more voicemails. Maybe she realized the finality. Maybe she expected me to come crawling back once the emotions settled. But what she didn't understand is that men like me, we don't leave over drama. We leave when the math stops working. When the equation becomes insult plus sacrifice equals obligation. And I'd finally solved it. I had overpaid. One night, around week 4, I got a message from an old coworker. He still lived back in Phoenix. He said he ran into Sandra at a supermarket. She looked thinner, quieter. She asked if you were doing okay, he wrote. Said you left suddenly. Wanted to know if you missed them. I stared at the message for a while, then typed back, Tell her I finally feel like I exist. Because that was the truth. In this new city, in this clean apartment, with no footsteps above me, no slammed doors, no cold silences at dinner, I felt real. Not useful. Not tolerated. Seen. Sometimes I still think about Haley. About the version of her that might have grown up and said thank you without prompting. The girl who might have reached for my hand at graduation. Called me on Father's Day. But I don't mourn her. Because she never existed. What existed was a girl who saw me as background noise, and a woman who let her. And now they were gone. The binder is still in my closet. I don't look at it often. But when I do, it reminds me, I was never crazy. Never paranoid. I was generous. To a fault. But even generosity has a limit. And when the limit's breached, there's no fight. No closure. Just a man walking away from a house that never learned his name. I live near Lake Travis now. The apartment's not big, not flashy. A one-bedroom on the second floor with a sliver of lake view if I lean over the balcony. But the light hits the walls just right in the morning, and the silence here isn't heavy. It's clean. I wake to birdsong instead of slammed doors. I make coffee and drink it in full. Nobody texts asking for rides. Nobody leaves dirty dishes for me to find. I have a dog now, a mutt named Juno. Found her at a shelter a few weeks after I moved. She was trembling in the back corner, bones tight under fur. I saw her. She saw me, and that was it. We go on long walks. We eat at the same time. She waits for me at the door like it means something. Sometimes I wonder what Sandra and Haley tell people now. If they say I abandoned them. If they've rewritten me into a villain, the cold man who left without a word. I wouldn't blame them. People lie best when they need to make sense of what they destroyed. But I know the truth. I didn't leave over one sentence. I left because that sentence proved everything I had feared all along. I'd never thank him. He's not family. That line didn't break me. It revealed me. For years I believed that consistency could replace blood. That presence could outrun history. That if I just kept giving, one day I would arrive. Not as a guest. Not as an accessory. But as a father. A man they saw. But you can't plant roots in stone. And what they gave me wasn't soil. It was granite. Cold. Unyielding. Sandra let it happen. That's the part that sticks. She had the power to soften it. To shape how Haley saw me. To say once, just once, respect him. But she didn't. She said, "You're the adult." She said, "Don't expect too much." What she meant was, expect nothing. And eventually that's exactly what I got. Nothing. Except a front row seat to my own erasure. The hardest part isn't the money. It's not the years lost. It's the realization that while I built their life, they were carving me out of it. I wonder sometimes, if I'd gotten sick, would they have stayed? If I lost my job, would Haley have pitched in? Would Sandra have fought for me? Or would they have left me quietly, with the same precision I used to leave them? The truth haunts me, because I think I know the answer. I walk these trails now with Juno at my side. She doesn't judge, doesn't compare me to someone else, doesn't ask why I'm quiet. When I speak, she listens. Not because she understands the words, but because she cares that I'm speaking. That's more than I got from Haley, more than I got from Sandra. There's peace here, yes, but it's not the warm kind. It's cold, solitary, like standing on a shoreline after a storm has ripped everything away. There's debris scattered behind you, but the water is finally still. I meet people sometimes, neighbors, hikers, old men fishing by the bank. They ask if I have a family. I say, not anymore. They nod like they understand. Nobody pushes. Sometimes I tell myself I did the right thing. That walking away wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. That I reclaimed something in that silence. But other nights I wonder if I failed. If I should have stayed. If maybe, with enough time, she would have turned and said, "Thank you." I think about what would have happened if I'd confronted her. If I'd burst into that room, dropped the food, demanded an apology. Maybe then the truth would have come out faster. Maybe she would have cried. Maybe Sandra would have taken my side. But I know better. The silence that followed that sentence was the real confession. They didn't say sorry, not then, not later, because they didn't believe they had anything to apologize for. To them, I was a choice they regretted admitting to, a shadow that paid the bills, a man who showed up but wasn't supposed to want anything back. Not love, not gratitude, not even decency. There's a ledger in every household. Not one you write down, but one you feel. A ledger of who gives, who takes, who carries, and who climbs. And when the numbers stay unbalanced too long, something breaks. I balanced that ledger with my absence. And you know what? They didn't collapse. They adapted. Maybe that's the bitterest pill of all. They'll survive. But they'll do it without me. Haley will finish school, find some job, fall in love, maybe even have kids. She'll sit at someone's kitchen table and say, "There was a guy, Ryan. He helped raise me." That'll be it. No depth, no detail, just a footnote. Sandra will remarry, probably. Find someone who doesn't expect respect. Or maybe someone who demands it early, before it's too late. And me? I'll keep walking, feeding Juno, sending myself Father's Day cards just to laugh. And I'll keep asking myself the question that never leaves. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to walk out of that house without a word? To take my silence and bind it into a message no apology could unwind? Was I cruel? Petty? Unforgiving? Or was I finally honest? Because here's what I know now. Love without respect is a leash. And when you've spent nearly a decade choking on it, freedom doesn't feel like joy. It feels like air for the first time. So I'll ask you, if your name was erased from every room you paid for, every memory you built, if your face was forgotten while your money was remembered, if the ones you gave your life to turned their backs with casual indifference, would you have stayed? Would you have begged? Or would you have done what I did? Would you have walked? Because sometimes the only way to be heard is to leave, and I left.